In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. A reading from the first letter of Paul to the Corinthians, chapter 15, verses from 3 to 5. For I delivered to you as of first importance what I also received, that Christ died for our sins in accordance with the Scriptures, that he was buried, that he was raised on the third day in accordance with the Scriptures, and that he appeared to Cephas, then to the 12. Let us pray. God our Father, we have come together this evening to reflect on the passion, death, and resurrection of your only beloved Son. Bless each of us present here, that as we reflect on the burial and resurrection narratives, we may bury ourselves together with your Son, and we may rise with him to new life. We make this prayer through Christ our Lord. Amen. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the sixth session of the Lenten Lectio. And today is the last session, and I'm happy that you are all here. Let's straight away begin our session. I share my screen with you. I hope you are able to view my screen.
Yes, Father.
Yes, Father. Yes, Father.
Very good. Thank you. So welcome to the Lenten Lectio, the last session, the sixth session. The topic for today is Passion Narratives, Burial and Resurrection. To situate our reflection today where we are in the entire series of the Lenten Lectio, I would say we are here on the last two narratives. We began here with events leading up to the Passover feast, then the Last Supper, the agony in the arrest in the garden, the accusation and charges, the crucifixion and death, and finally today, the burial and the resurrection narratives. And to begin with, if you remember the reading which we had just now from 1 Corinthians 15, 3 to 5, this is one of the earlier confessional formulas. Confessional formulas in the sense, whenever people had to be baptized in the early church, they have to recite something. They had to recite in a way, they had to profess their faith in Christ. And what is that creedal formula they used? Like we have an apostolic creed or Nicene creed. So similarly, they didn't have a very worked out creed with a lot of dogmas in it, but very simple creedal formula. So the formula is very simple. Number one, Christ died for our sins. Christ was buried and he rose from the dead. So these three words were of utmost importance. Number one, dying for our sins. That is Jesus' vicarious suffering. Then he was buried. And this is one of the key words because early church, there was a rumor, as we have from the Gospel of Matthew, that the disciples of Jesus stole the body of Jesus. And in a way, many said that Jesus was never buried. But to affirm that Jesus' resurrection, the burial is the must. That's why they have this particular word in the creedal formula. Jesus was buried and then rose again on the third day according to the scriptures. So these three words were there in the creedal formula, and we are going to actually deal with these two words, burial and resurrection, and the death we have seen earlier in our previous session. And coming to the geography, we are going to concentrate here on two places, 9 and 10. So here Jesus is crucified on the cross, he died, and now he is taken from the cross and he is going to be buried. And from here, he will rise again right to new life, that is resurrection. So our concentration today is on places 9 and 10. We are here at the outskirts of Jerusalem. We are outside both the Kolkata mountain is outside the Jerusalem wall, and the tomb also is outside the temple walls. Good. Coming to the first part, burial. This burial narrative we have in all the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Usually, in the Jesus' time, it was considered a Jew would be blessed if he or she has these three things. Number one, long life. Number two, offspring. Number three, own grave. So based on these three things, Jesus' society considered a person as a blessed person. But if we, according to these three blessings, Jesus was not a blessed person because he didn't live long, he had no offspring, and above all, he didn't have his own grave. And that's the tragedy. But Jesus, through his death and resurrection, became a blessing to all, even though the contemporary Jewish society considered his life and death as a curse. Crucified person was denied a grave because it was pollution to the land. Since already this person is executed, nobody would give a space for burial. This was the situation earlier. And corpses on the cross until the birds and the beast eat them up. So this is how they used to leave the corpses on the cross. Later, bones will be thrown elsewhere, either on the mountainside or elsewhere people would throw, and nobody would mind burying the crucified person. So this was the context with which we need to understand Jesus' burial. Refusal of burial is much more terrible than it is for us. Today, for example, last year and a year before, when many of our brothers and sisters died during the pandemic, we saw how it was difficult to bury. Even in some villages, there were problems like they didn't allow the pandemic afflicted patients to be buried in their own cemetery, and people were reluctant because that virus would spread. So all types of rumors were there, and many violent activities also were there. But because it was like on the other side, on the flip side, people forgot that the person who is dead deserves dignity. So often in our pandemic context as well, we in few cases we denied human dignity to our own brothers and sisters. But that's not a big thing now because people just forget and go. But earlier, refusal of burial would be a very big thing, and the society won't accept. And why this was case? Because when no funeral or no burial, there is no afterlife. This was their belief, and that's why the crucified persons were not given any burial because they are denied even afterlife. This was the situation in Jesus's time, and they were to be buried before sunset because at sunset a new day begins, and also before the sunset, maybe for practical reasons, they said it will be difficult do those days to go to the grave or to go to the garden side. So all for practical reason, but nothing, no religious reason is attached. But later, religious reasons were put together. Refusal of the grave is a dishonor to the dead and defilement of the land. So this was the concern of the Jews of Jesus' time. So they wanted him to be buried. They did not want Jesus to be left alone on the cross. Even enemies and prisoners were laid to rest. So this was the understanding of Jews, especially after Assyrian and Babylonian captivity. Assyrian captivity and Babylonian captivity taught these Jews a great lesson in the sense when they were led into these captivities, they saw in front of their own eyes their brothers and sisters dying and lying on the roadside. Nobody was there to bury them. And it was considered as a great duty of a Jew that to bury a fellow Jew. That's what we have in the book of Tobit. Tobit his main concern is to bury the dead. So that must be during the Assyrian captivity where many were lying dead on the road. And Tobit was very keen on giving them an honorable funeral. And coming to Abraham, when Sarah dies, he offers her a burial ground. They said, this is the first piece of promised land. So the first piece of promised land in the entire salvation history was a burial ground for Sarah. So that's something beautiful because at burial, we need a land. We need a piece of land. So that is the understanding of Jews. But here, Jesus does not have a land for his own burial. That's the contrast. Those who hang on the cross to be removed before sunset. So this was a earlier custom, all for practical reasons. So the council, that is Sanhedrin, asked the deaths of the three persons to be hastened because the next day, because for them the evening begins the new day. So evening, the Sabbath would begin. So the crosses are there on Friday and these persons are there on Friday. Now the Sabbath, that Saturday is about to begin. And this Saturday is all the more important because the Passover is very close. So that way the Sanhedrin is very keen that Jesus and other two persons be dead, first of all. the next day Sabbath. So the council wanted to be assured that Jesus is dead. That is also the second reason. The first reason is the religious reason. Second reason is their own criminal reason. Like they wanted to make sure that Jesus is dead. Because once they requires the government to interfere, naturally they will kill even if that person is not dead on the cross. So that way the council had its own motive. Then coming to the flip side of it, that is a very good person. Now the new persons come up to the scene. Joseph of Arimathea, a Jesus sympathizer, petitions to Pilate for the release of the body of Jesus. And the Gospels, Synoptic Gospels say he was looking for the kingdom of God. And John says that he was a secret disciple. And Nicodemus also come into the scene. So till now, only what we saw in the scene was everybody conspired against Jesus, be it the disciples or the Sanhedrin, Pilate, Herod, all the people were against Jesus. But now we have a different scene. People who are waiting for the kingdom, people who trust God's promises and await their fulfillment, people who recognize the words and deeds of Jesus in breaking up God's kingdom, the incipient fulfillment of the promises. So this particular group of people have promises that would be fulfilled in Christ Jesus. That is their expectation. And now these people come to the scene. Earlier in the Synoptic Gospels, especially in the Gospel of Luke, we have Mary and Joseph, Zechariah and Elizabeth, the shepherds. So all these humble people, poor people, simple folk. But later, during the Passion narrative, all we had the sophisticated people, the elite, like the chief priest, high priest, governor, then tetrarch, all these people were the powerful people. So again now, at the end of the resurrection scene and even prior to that, the burial scene, again the simple folk come into the scene. So now, among the simple folk, there were also two elite persons, Joseph of Arimathea, Nicodemus, and they must have been, like Joseph of Arimathea must have been a very influential person because he was able to petition directly to the governor, Pontius Pilate, because it was very difficult to approach the governor. And he had his own power, so that either he must be a powerful person in terms of politics or in terms of religion. Coming to Nicodemus, Nicodemus was a member of the Sanhedrin, so that way he had also his own power. Now, so from here we understand, even among the elite, there were some people, very good believers were there for Jesus. So not only the simple folk, but also the wealthy, the powerful also believed in Jesus. Pilate was surprised to learn that Jesus was already dead and that he immediately inquired of the centurion whether it was true. So again, Pilate wanted to make sure, because there is no further riot, or like he in a way wants to make sure that Jesus is dead, and he uses the power. And also here you see how the politics or how the administration went that side. Like Joseph of Arimathea was an influential person. He goes to Pilate, but still Pilate has his own duty, that is verifying through the centurion. So that way things were very clear administratively. And coming to the information concerning the burial, in the Gospels we have, Joseph arranged for the Lord's body to be laid in a new tomb that belonged to him, a tomb in which no one had yet been buried. So this is the beauty, that Jesus is buried in a new tomb. Like we have in the Palm Sunday, Jesus is offered a new donkey on which nobody has ever sat. So that way Jesus is unique both on the Palm Sunday and on the burial day or on the resurrection day. Then second one, Joseph bought a lined cloth in which he wrapped the corpse. Whereas the synoptic speaks simply of a linen sheet in the singular, John uses the plural, linen cloths. So it's like for a burial, they would just wrap the body in a linen sheet. And John is telling linen cloths because why linen cloths, in the sense we'll come to that shortly. Only the high priest will have many, in the sense the more cloths you have over your body, the more prestigious it is, because like you are not directly connected to the earth or to the soil. So that way people were protected. We understand simply, like when a cat or a dog is dead, just we throw into the street or we bury just like that. And there it's in the sense, as far as the dignity is concerned, it has lesser dignity, because that's why it has just direct contact with the earth or soil. But now, one step ahead, one step it's with the wrapping. So now if you understand from our own burial customs, we can say the more sophisticated coffins we have. So some we have gold plated, silver plated, or teak wood. Then inside we have a material which is a purple or different class. So that way we don't want to get it decomposed or to directly. We don't want it to be touched by the earth. That refers to the prestige. And number three, John tells that Nicodemus brought a mixture of myrrh and aloes, about 100 pounds weight. The quantity of balm is extraordinary and exceeds all normal proportions. So this is indeed a royal burial. So it's going to be a royal burial because of the myrrh and frankincense, then because of the cloth. So that way Jesus was buried in a royal way. And coming to understand are the how to understand the tomb. So the tomb from our archaeological discoveries, people say like a tomb might have been more or less like it's a hewn stone, like this is a stone, and it's hewn like it's a some hollow space is created. Then there will be a rolled stone here, and here then there will be a bench inside. So stone bench will be there. So what they would do usually, they will keep the corpse on the stone bench. Then they will close it. And it was said that for 3 days, the soul of the person will be around here. And the fourth day, when the body decomposes, so in the sense the face disfigures or the body decomposes, the spirit or the soul will not be able to identify the person, so the soul will leave forever. That's why in the Martha Bethany narrative we have, when Jesus tells the persons to remove the stone, and Martha is telling it is the fourth day. Why Martha is telling it's fourth day? Because only till the 3 days the soul will be here, and maybe it was possible that Jesus would put the soul back to the body. Now fourth day means already the soul is out. Soul would be nowhere. So that way it would be all the more difficult and it would stink. And that's the word of Martha. Martha, it will be stinking. And the same thing here. And here I was telling it's a stone bench. And after that they close it. So suppose after 10 years, another person dies in the same family, what they will do? They will again roll the stone and they will see the stone bench. In the stone bench, only the skeleton will be there. The bones will be there. So what they will do? They will remove all the bones and they will put under the stone bench. And that is called like to lie with the ancestors. Like we have in 2 Samuel, it reads that King David died and was added to the ancestors. So what is the meaning of being added to the ancestors? In the sense, his bones were added to the ancestors. So this was the burial custom and this is the burial ground. And if you go to Holy Land today, and this is the Jesus's burial place. So like this must be the tomb, and around that now we have the new temple. And this is how like you enter through this way and you are led this way and you have to get into this place. And this is the tomb of Jesus, and here we'll come. This is the outer, the external side, and inside what we have. So this is a Orthodox priest here. So this is supposed to be the stone bench on which Jesus's body laid. So this is the modern. We have the icon here, and we have candles. And this is here. This is the closer view. And here this is the stone bench on which Jesus supposed to have been laid. And here we have this word Christos Aneste, means Christ is risen, Christ is no more. So this is the information which was given by the angels to the women, and the same message is even today put up there. And if to compare, like now we understand like more or less this must have been the stone bench inside this particular grave. Let's continue with the argument. The Synoptic Gospels tell us that some women observed the burial, and Luke reports that they were the ones who had come with him from Galilee. He adds, then they returned and prepared spices and ointments. After the Sabbath rest, that is the entire Saturday, on the morning of the first day of the week, Sunday, they would come to anoint the body of Jesus and thus to carry out the definitive burial. Anointing is an attempt to hold death at bay, to preserve the corpse from decomposition. So this was the purpose of anointing. And yet it is a vain effort. Anointing can only maintain the dead person in death. It cannot restore him to life. But what happens the next day? On the morning of the first day, the women will see that their concern for the dead body and its preservation was all too human a concern, they will see that God has preserved him from decomposition in a definitive way, possible only to God, and has thereby preserved him from death. That's the beauty of God's intervention. These women wanted to maintain or preserve the corpse from decomposition. But what God does, he does a great thing that he resurrects the body and no more decomposition for Jesus's body. And that's the beauty we have in resurrection. And this must have been more or less a painting scene where there is here we can say this must be Joseph of Arimathea and Nicodemus, and these two must be their servants, and they are laying Jesus's body here. And this must be the stone bench, but it looks like a coffin because it's inspired from the later our own burial customs, because it was not put in a box. So this is not historical. Then we have Mary, mother of Jesus. Then this must be, some say this must be John, or some say Mary Magdalene, or other women. So most probably these must be women who witnessed to the burial, because the apostles are not here at all. And this must be the Jerusalem temple far from here, and Kolkata must be somewhere from this side behind. This is the garden tomb. That's the burial. Coming to the second part, resurrection. The resurrection narrative we have in Mark, Matthew, Luke, John, 16, 28, 24, and 20 chapters. And the creedal formula, which we had at the beginning of the class: if Christ has not been raised, then our preaching is in vain and your faith is in vain. We are even found to be misrepresenting God, because we testified of God what he raised Christ. That this is the creedal formula. Paul tells that our entire Christian faith is founded on this resurrection. But from the Gospel of Matthew, if you look at, our entire Christian faith is founded on a rumor, because what seems to be resurrection for us was a rumor for the Jews. So this is how we look at the Jesus' resurrection was mere rumor to the Jews, and the Jews even believe in that rumor even today. What actually happened, we don't know, because suppose earlier we had CCTV, very well we could have seen how the entire scene took place, and nobody registered it or nobody recorded, and actually nobody knows what actually happened. So this is the historical tool. And the disciples asked one another what rising from the dead could mean, because after the transfiguration, when Jesus tells that the Son of Man will be risen from the dead, they didn't understand, because they never have witnessed in front of their own eyes that they will rise from the dead, and they were not able to understand. And indeed, what does it mean? The disciples did not know, and they could find out only through encountering the reality itself. Only now, for the first time, looking at Jesus's body not there, or the tomb being empty, they come to the understanding, or they come to understand the resurrection or rising of the dead. Now they come to understand the later. Now, how do we understand the resurrection narratives? You need to understand there are two traditions, two literary traditions. Number one, confessional tradition. Number two, narrative tradition. Let me explain. What is the confessional tradition? Confessional tradition just tells the key facts that serve to confirm the faith, like Jesus rose from the dead. Like they went in, they saw, and they believed. And that's how that's confessional state, because it has to do with the creedal formula. And only men are named as witnesses, especially in John. Like we have the scene, like when first Peter runs, then the beloved disciple runs ahead, and he waits till Peter arrives. Now both of them enter, and they see, they believe. This is how John writes. They saw and they believed. What did they see? They saw the empty tomb and they believe in the resurrection of Jesus. So in the confessional tradition, very, very simple statements. They saw, believed. So nothing, no narration is there. Only simple statements are there. So that is a confessional tradition. Here only men have a role to play. As in the Jewish tradition, only men could be admitted as witnesses in court. And two persons have to witness in a court. So now two persons see empty tomb. So that way, that particular reality becomes legally true or legally valid, because they, as men, as two men, are able to bear witnesses. Then it crystallizes, in the sense puts together the essentials in short phrases. The Lord has risen indeed and has appeared to Simon. We have in Luke 24:34 a formula of acclamation and confession. Acclamation in the sense people feel happy and they confess that the Lord loves. So now Jesus is no more the name, the Lord. So Jesus has become the Lord. So that is the confession. That is the confessional tradition, because after reading these statements, people have to confess their faith in Jesus. That is called confessional tradition. And what is the narrative tradition? Narrative is merely a story. So through stories also, the evangelists tried to explain what really happened. Like the stories were encounters with the risen Lord and the words spoken by him on that occasion. For example, Jesus comes to meet the disciples, the closed doors. That is an encounter. He talks to them. Peace be with you. Do you have a fish? He talks to them. Emmaus narrative. Again, it's a narrative story. Jesus encounters them. Then Jesus meeting Peter and asking, do you love me? And Jesus again meeting the disciples and telling them, come and eat. So all these places are their encounters, and there is a real conversation going on. And here women play a key role, especially in the garden scene where Mary Magdalene is there, and Mary Magdalene and Jesus, Mary considered Jesus to be a gardener, and there is a conversation. That's a narrative tradition. And they take precedence over the men in narrative tradition. And here it's a shift from Galilee and Jerusalem. But here everything happens in Jerusalem. But here there is a playing forth. Like Jesus is telling Mary Magdalene, you tell my brothers that I am going ahead to them in Galilee. Galilee means the hometown of Jesus where he began his ministry. So there is a a shifting of places in narrative tradition, but in confessional tradition, there is no shifting of places. Then now coming to the empty tomb. The empty tomb is no proof of the resurrection, and that much is undeniable. Okay, we can't take empty tomb alone is the proof. The proclamation of the resurrection would have been completely impossible if anyone had been able to point to a body lying in the tomb. Hence, empty tomb as such, while it cannot prove the resurrection, it is nevertheless a necessary condition for the resurrection faith. So here, it was a rumor that the disciples had stolen the body. But no Roman centurion or no Roman soldier or no member of the Sanhedrin ever attempted to prove that this is where the body of Jesus is lying. So from there we come to understand Jesus' tomb was empty, and the people couldn't disprove or couldn't prove that the body was stolen by the apostles. So that way Jesus is risen. So this is how we come to understand the resurrection. And coming to Jesus' appearances also, look here in Acts 26, especially the Paul's conversion narrative, the appearance is completely different. He encounters the risen Lord, but he only hears the voice and sees the light, but no body. So Jesus does not appear as a body. But coming to Luke and John, Jesus has a body. Like he walks with the disciples to Emmaus, and here he talks to as a real person, he talks to Peter. So that way now we are not sure whether Jesus' appearance was as in Acts or as in Luke and John. So this is the literary difficulty we have. And the entire resurrection narrative runs on the dialectic of recognition and non-recognition. Like people are able to recognize Jesus till not. For example, Mary Magdalene, she sees Jesus, but not able to recognize. She recognizes or misrecognizes as a gardener. That is the theme, motive. Recognition and non-recognition. Coming to the disciples, they recognize and they say that we have seen the Lord, but Thomas tells that no, I won't believe unless I have a touch of him. So that's a non-recognition. And some people say it's like a theophany in the First Testament, like Genesis, Abraham has it, Joshua has it, then in the Judges, Gideon has it. So some people try to say it's a theophany. It's really not a real person in Jesus. But how do we understand? Number one, Jesus did not simply return to normal biological life as one who by the laws of biology would eventually have to die again. So if this were to be true, this would be resuscitation. For example, Jairus' daughter comes back to life. She has a body because Jesus tells the mother, give her something to eat. Lazarus comes to life. Resuscitation, not resurrection, because after the second life, they won't have a body. If they have a body, they will die again. Like Lazarus died again, and Jairus' daughter might have died again. But Jesus didn't have a biological life, so he would never die again. That's number one. Number two, Jesus is not a ghost or spirit. In other words, he does not belong to the realm of the dead, as we have in 1 Samuel 28, where Saul goes to goes for witchcraft and tries to see how the Samuel spirit can be brought in. So that's not a spirit, but is somehow able to reveal in the realm of the living. That's a very unique about Jesus' resurrection. Thirdly, the encounters with the risen Lord are not the same as mystical experiences in which the human spirit is momentarily drawn aloft out of itself and perceives the realm of the divine and eternal, only to return then to the normal horizon of its existence. For example, the disciples were not taken in ecstasy. For example, we have Teresa of Avila. She would go into ecstasy and she would just see Jesus in front. Then again, she would come back to her normal life. She would eat and she would sleep and she would do all the daily works of the convent. That's the mystical experience. So the disciples' experience was not a mystical experience, but it was a real experience. This is how we need to understand. But and also we need to be sure that it's not the same kind of historical event as the birth or crucifixion. Birth is historical because there is space and time. Crucifixion, space and time. But it's not historical, but it's ahistorical, they say. Ahistorical in the sense it is beyond history. For example, like a love of a mother. How do I know that my mother loves me? I can't prove in history, in space and time. But this is an experience. So a mother's love is always ahistorical, beyond history. For example, the disciples were transformed totally, like they were behind the closed doors. Now they are able to boldly announce Jesus, and that's a transformation. And that transformation is ahistorical in the sense that can't be proved with the historical categories. So that is something new. So this is how we need to understand. As a learned person, we need to say that this is not a historical event as the birth or crucifixion of Jesus, but it is a historical that is beyond history. Good. And this is how this is again a painting here. Look here, like Jesus. There's already how the early Christian communities later, the cross is like Jesus has a pole and with a cross and a flag. So here we have a similar statues in our own churches. So this must be after Constantine or after the Middle Ages, because earlier when Jesus rose from the dead, he didn't have anything. And this is here the scene of soldiers sleeping. So this is the scene. And this particular picture we have in the Lectio Divina of this month. Good. Let's take the narrative traditions and we'll try to understand them. Let's look at this one here. So we have the very good picture here. So there are different portrayals. I like this portrayal for a simple reason. Look here. So here Mary, so the tomb is here, Mary is here, and garden is here. Gardener or Jesus. So here you take the gospel reading in John. Okay. Now this happens. First, Mary is looking at the tomb. Okay. Now she sees somebody standing behind. Okay. Now she has turned. And there is a conversation. Conversation is going on. Like Mary presumes that this person is a gardener. So here look, sees this person as a staff of a gardener. And maybe to make her misunderstand, misrepresent, the artist has put it here. And in the text it reads, when Jesus says Rabboni, she turns again and says, when Mary or Maria, immediately she turns again and tells Jesus, Rabboni, that is my master. So look here, the problem is, already Mary is now turning to this. Why does Mary turn again? If Mary turns again, what she will do? She will again turn towards the tomb. There is a problem in the text. So how does Saint Augustine explain? Augustine explains it beautifully. First time when Mary turned, Mary's body turned. Only the second time, Mary's soul turned. So Saint Augustine beautifully tells, to understand Jesus' resurrection, it is not enough that you turn your body to Jesus, but you need to turn your soul. I think that's the most beautiful explanation we have for this text, and that comes from Saint Augustine. So I think to understand Jesus' resurrection, it's not enough that we understand only through our physical body, physical eyes, and something to be connected from here to here. There should be a heart-to-heart interaction. Only that person, only the person who turns twice, first bodily, second spiritually, can identify Jesus' resurrection. That is a very beautiful concept we have in John. That's Mary Magdalene scene. Coming to the second one, Emmaus narrative. So here this is again a Middle Age painting. So we have Jesus here, and from narrative tradition, that's why Jesus has a body, and this body walks. And now these disciples invite him inside, and they say it's evening, stay with us. And really, it's a good gesture from these disciples. They wanted somebody to be with him. And we can understand here only that theologically, only a person who lets Jesus inside the home can understand Jesus' resurrection. Number one, to understand Jesus' resurrection, my soul should turn to him. Number two, he must come to my home. Only then resurrection experience is possible. That is conveyed through the second narrative. Third narrative, Thomas narrative. The Thomas narrative, they say, why this narrative was there, like even in John, we have earlier, Mary Magdalene scene. Mary Magdalene hugs Jesus, embraces Jesus, and Jesus is telling, Noli me tangere, don't cling on to me, don't touch me. Why? Because I have to go to my Father. And Mary is hugging, or Mary is embracing Jesus. Here, Thomas is putting his finger in Jesus' body. In Luke, we have Jesus eating fish. All these stories, through them, the evangelists want to convey one thing. What is that? Jesus had a body. Because earlier traditions, early Christians, they were thinking that Jesus was a ghost. So to tell them that Jesus really had a body, they have to, in a way, portray. So what they do, they use Mary Magdalene to embrace Jesus' body. They use Thomas to put his finger into Jesus' body. And they use, again, fish to be eaten by Jesus. So that way, they want to portray to the early Christian community that Jesus really had a body. So that way, we can say Thomas narrative is only a literary narrative. So literary narrative that wants to prove that Jesus had a body. And another thing, now Thomas is there and we are here far behind. We are far behind Thomas. Now we have to see, and Jesus is telling, blessed are those who haven't seen but yet believe. Now Thomas is actually this hand is our hand. Somewhere from here, maybe after 2022 years, I and you are touching Jesus' body through this particular finger of Thomas. So that way, Thomas' finger becomes an hyphen between Jesus' body and my and your own faith. So that way, Thomas is a hyphen, we can say. And we have another narrative where Jesus encounters Peter and asks, do you love me? 3 times. And the scholars say, why does he ask 3 times? Because Peter denied Jesus 3 times, and that's why Jesus is asking 3 times. So again, John does not want to conclude the gospel with a very negative picture of the early Supreme Pontiff, the first Holy Father. So maybe this narrative might have been added, where from the 3 denials, Peter comes to 3 surrenders. So the formula is very beautiful. At the end, Peter simply says, Lord, when Jesus asked, do you love me? Lord, you know everything. I think that is the ultimate surrender we need to have. And this text also has a life lesson. Listen, Jesus tells that when you were young, you went about wherever you wanted. But now as you are old, you have to stretch out your hand and give, and somebody will lead you to the place where you don't want to. I think that is the lot of life. Lessons, life has that way. Like when we are young, we go from here, there. But as life comes to a close, as the sunset is approaching, I think we need to go to a surrendering point. And that's the beauty of this painting. See here, the sunset is there, and at the sunset of life, Jesus is there and Peter are there. So Peter and Jesus are represented by the sunset, means the life is about to end, but it's going to be a new beginning. Good. Coming to the closure of the entire Lenten Lectio, I will conclude with some theological significance. Number 1, from God with us, that is Christmas narrative. Now at resurrection, Jesus becomes God for us. So that is the movement from Christmas story to resurrection story. And another life lesson is everything will pass away. So Maundy Thursday will pass away, Palm Sunday will pass away, Good Friday will pass away, and everything will be resurrection. And even resurrection will be passing away because nothing holds on forever. And Jesus proves through these points that messiahship is always through suffering. And different evangelists portray Jesus differently. For Mark, Jesus was abandoned. For Luke, the disciples are sympathizing with Jesus. For John, Jesus was a sovereign king, sovereign high priest, even at his death. A few hours story actually, but it has a lot of things to cover. As a reader of the Passion history, I should ask myself, With which protagonist I identify? Do I identify with Jesus or Pilate, with Judas, with Peter? Passion was not an end, it culminated in the resurrection. Just as the cross was real, the resurrection was also real. It is truly He that is risen. And the resurrection appearances testify to the fact that Jesus did not remain in the grave, that He lives on. The disciples are transformed, and we are also called to be transformed. And if you want to understand more about the passion narratives, so these are the 5 works I referred to for this Lenten Lectio series. Number 1, by Raymond Brown, a very good book, The Death of the Messiah. It has 2 volumes. Then by Hendricks, Passion Narratives. By Loafing, The Last Day of Jesus. By Ratzinger, our Pope Benedict XVI, Jesus of Nazareth. Holy Week from the entrance into Jerusalem into the resurrection. Then Wanwa, Structure and Theology of the Accounts of the Passion in the Synoptic Gospels. These books are available through Amazon if you want to have a deeper reading of this, or if you want to do some studies on that, you could refer to, or you could refer to any theological library. They will surely have this collection. Let's conclude with the final slide. So some say this quote is from Augustine, some say this one from Marshall, but let's just take the quote. The stone was rolled away from the door, not to let Christ come out, but to enable the disciples to go in. So would you like to go in too? So this will be our question, that unless we get into this empty tomb, we can never feel that Jesus is risen from the dead. So that way, resurrection becomes a personal and unique experience for each of us. Good. That concludes my presentation, and that concludes the series. Thank you. So we'll conclude with a prayer. Let us pray. God our Father, we thank you for your presence amidst us throughout this series of Lenten Lectio, where we reflected on the text concerning passion, death, and resurrection of your Son. We have been challenged to follow your Son more closely, to love him more deeply, and to know him more profoundly. We thank you for the presence of all these brothers and sisters. We surrender ourselves to you, that as we approach the Palm Sunday, let us enter into Jerusalem of our own life and be transformed into resurrection. Bless all our aspirations, dreams, wishes, all our near and dear ones, that we may always be the people of Easter, people of joy and peace, and we may always convey the same to others as witnessing to your Son's resurrection. We make this prayer through Christ our Lord. Amen. The Lord be with you and with your spirit. May Almighty God bless you, the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen.